Vanguard is a game that is in perpetual motion with the introduction of new mechanics and new sets and new gameplay. But what would happen if Bushiroad reintroduced Legion into Standard? Let's talk about that.
Stand up! Vanguard!
Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another discussion video, and today I want to talk about Legion, and more precisely Legion in Standard. And to give more context about why this video is made, last livestream this Tuesday we got a screenshot where they showcased the new Musketeer units that would be getting a V-Series reissue. And those Musketeers were an original Legion pair. And just like Neo Flame and the Great, those were also Legion units that were reintroduced into the V-Series. But the main difference between those cards and these cards is that the Great wasn't really teased to us as this is going to be something like a Legion or something. It was just like, the Great is going to come back. And we as a community immediately thought, oh, Legion is coming back, and then the skills were revealed, and it was something reminiscent of Legion, but not actually a Legion. This new Musketeers, Bushiroad is taking a whole different approach. They already told us that those old Legion units are going to get a new version in V, but now primarily with less reveal stream, they teased us with a black image with a silhouette of two cards together, which would reminisce the old Legion concept. But this could be interpreted as, oh, their artwork is going to be together, or they're just going to tease stuff. But that's not the main topic of this video. This video isn't about me explaining, oh, those units are going to be a Legion. No, we don't know for sure. Bushiroad can just pull a leg on us and just make it that it was just to excite us, or to keep us talking about it, like this video for example. No, this video is more about, alright, what if this thing happens to be Legion? What does this mean for Standard? How would this impact Standard as a whole if we get it for a single unit or for a clan? I'm interested in a thought experiment for that. So let's start with the basics and explain what a Legion is, because if you're only starting since the reboot, you might wondering, what is Legion? Well, Legion is an old mechanic that was introduced a couple of years ago, just before the G era with Strides was taking place, and this concept is the art of having two Vanguards on the Vanguard circle. So you have two cards on your Vanguard circle that work together, and they are harmonizing as one unit. And the whole mechanic is very simple. It's a unit has a Legion skill, and on that skill it states a specific unit which it legions with and the total power of those base powers combined. So you have a remembering number of what your Vanguard attack would be, because the Vanguard power would be a total of the Vanguard Legion, which is the grade 3, together with the Legion Mate, which can be a grade 2 or a grade 3. And how you can attain this state of Legion is simply you write a grade 3 with the Legion skill, and if your opponent is also a grade 3, then you must put 4 cards from your drop zone into your deck, and if you do that, you can search your deck for the Legion Mate and then place it beside it on the Vanguard circle, and then you have achieved Legion state. The major thing about this is that you must put 4 cards from your drop zone back into the deck. That is an actual cost. So if you cannot do that, you cannot Legion that turn. Also, main ruling about this is that you cannot re-Legion with the same grade 3. So if you want to do Legion again, you need to rewrite a new grade 3 and then Legion with that specific grade 3 again. Also, a important ruling is that both units' power would be combined on the attack. So if one of the Legion units is going to get an additional power, the entire attack will gain power. But the critical will only be counted towards your Legion leader. So the one with the Legion skill itself, that is your main Vanguard. That critical will be determined how much damage you do. So if your mate gets an additional crit, then that doesn't matter for your damage output. And when you are being attacked, you are still regarded as only the grade 3. So your opponent can only attack your Legion leader. So even though your Legion power may be 20, 22, or 23, they only attack into your grade 3, which would be 11k with old era power numbers. So you're not that high number against during your opponent's turn, and your opponent can also not attack your mate. So if you have a grade 2 mate on your leader, then you don't have to worry that they can suddenly cheese easy hits, because they can only attack your leader as that is a grade 3. So now that you have a basic understanding of what Legion is, the main things of this mechanic is that you could have very powerful Vanguard skills, as you have 2 units onto the Vanguard circle, and both those units' Vanguard skills can be used. So if you have a grade 2 with a Vanguard skill, you can still activate that. So you have a lot more potential of Vanguard skill-centric skills, especially if those are Legion mates as well, so you can search them out. Another interesting thing about Legions is that you can put cards back into your deck. The main thing at the time was putting triggers back into your deck. It was the best way to have filtering back for triggers, so you have a higher chance of getting heals, crits, draws, and all that kind of stuff. And now with Standard, you have fronts potentially, so you have more reoccursions of your deck. It also helps against deck out, so certain decks that go fast towards deck out have a more longevity to them thanks to Legion. But there is a dark side to Legion, and a lot of people don't like Legion era or the Legion concept, and there are a couple of reasons for that. One of those things is that the power creep, or at least the power distribution, was very unfair. There were a couple of decks that were way too powerful and the rest either never got their Legion support or got very crappy support. And besides that, a lot of the Legion decks either took forever to play because there was a lot of shuffling. You had Musketeers that keep shuffling the deck, and Gold Paladin with Bluish Flames that keep shuffling their deck for multiple things. The games took quite a while, especially with the longevity of putting triggers back and cards back into deck. But all these problems aren't necessarily the fault of the mechanic of Legion, because Legion itself is a very simple mechanic and doesn't attain to these problems. The major problem was that Bushiroad designed specific Legions very unfairly and made way too powerful skills, and also they stopped the whole Legion era concept way too soon to go into strides, which means a lot of clans didn't get their Legion support or actual good support, meaning the power balance was very skewed into specific clans like Royal Paladin, for example. Now the interesting thing is, how would this work with V? Well, it's actually pretty similar as the concept of having a leader grade 3, that's probably your VR then in that case, which will have a skill with a specific grade 2 that works together with it, which you can sort out as a Legion mate. And we already seen this in V, that the support for each and every single wave, we have a grade 1, a grade 2, and a VR that are working to a specific goal. They are the main bulk of the new support, so they only have to make the grade 2 also a mate to the grade 3 VR, and you're actually done. And that's very simple with the new support, and you don't really change up a lot to do this. And also, it doesn't really power creep the current format at all, because you need to be waiting until your opponent is grade 3 at the same time to be able to do Legion. So you need to go second if you want the Legion first. And in Standard, going first is all the more important. So giving second an edge in that sense makes going second and third a bit more fair. This is what we have seen with Gancelot and Mordred Phantom and a couple of other cards like the new God Hand that do change this up a bit, and going first and going second a bit more fair. But with how Standard is now, with a lot of cards, even this Legion might be a bit too slow to make it too broken, because we still have cards that go live on grade 3 when you're still grade 2, like Gauntlet Buster for example. That will still overwhelm you on the early game even before you can go Legion. So I don't think the concept of Legion itself would be too strong for Standard. Yes, they can make very powerful skills onto the card with Legion, but that is a whole nother story. But another interesting thing that's different in current day Vanguard V, that is different than old school Vanguard, that is the difference in base power. In the old days, every grade 3, or at least every viable grade 3, was 11k. And you either Legion with a 9k grade 2 or a 10k grade 2, which either made you a 20k Legion or a 21k Legion. And the 21k Legion had an edge because you were fighting against an 11k grade 3. That's the magic number. Later we had these Revival Legions, which were Legioning with another grade 3, so that was a 22 base, so that was 11 plus 11. And this is where VR Legion will be different, as you have Axel and Protect, which their grade 3s are 12k, and their grade 2s are 9k. And then you have Force, and their grade 3s are 13k, and their grade 2s are 10k. Meaning Force Legions, by default, if we're going to do grade 3 with grade 2, are going to be 23k base, and Axel and Protect are going to be 21k base. And that is a major issue for Axel and Protect. They're not going to hit on a magic number against Force, but Force is going to hit a very good magic number against themselves as well as against other clans. So Force is going to have a big edge in this. And this is also why I think it's very plausible that the Musketeers are going to be an actual Legion. I'm not saying it will, but it makes more plausible because Force Legions are the best type of legions, thanks to the whole thing that their grade 2s and the grade 3s have a higher base power and together still makes a magic number that beats over a defensive force grade 3. Also a big difference in V era with Legion in old school era is that we don't have stand triggers and we now have front triggers. So there is a difference in trigger lineup. And front triggers with Legion can be detrimental because front triggers gives the entire front row plus 10k. And I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe when you get a front trigger while you are in Legion state, both Legion units are gonna get the plus 20k, meaning a front trigger is a plus 20k on your Vanguard, and that can be pretty big, because I think that is how it works, as Force 1 does work like that. If you have a Force marker underneath your Vanguard, both Legion mate and leader are gonna get plus 10k, meaning the entire Legion will get plus 20k. Another reason why I do think giving this Musketeer thing the Legion mechanic makes plausible sense, as a lot of Force mechanics or built-in aspects of Force are just so good with Legion, and it can make a very powerful new support wave or a powerful archetype or mechanic. So I'm curious if that's gonna be the case. But once again, it will be changed up if we have Legion in standard, because of the fact that we don't have stand triggers, so less multi-attacking in most cases, but front triggers can potentially overpower the concept of Legion, because you can give plus 20k to the Vanguard, meaning guarding against a Legion in an Exo clan is very tough, as a 2 to pass is actually a 1 to pass if they run front triggers, so yeah, that can be very scary. Now, to basically summarize the entire video, how good would this Legion concept be? I think if we introduce it in standard, and we're gonna say it's gonna be a widespread mechanic for everybody, I think if they are gonna keep it in the way that they're doing the current VRs with Infinite Deity Cradle with that power level, if they're gonna keep it with that, I think Legion is gonna be an addition to the mechanic, to the game. It's not gonna be the new best thing that everybody's gonna use. It's probably gonna be a new thing, because as I stated before, depending on how they're gonna build the mates, Protect and Exo Legions do have a disadvantage. However, Exo does have the advantage of front triggers that will make them a lot more threatening in defense, in the defense stage for your opponent. But besides that, that will end it at that point. Force, on the other hand, will have the best position for Legions, and probably their Legions will be the most viable or the most used in the meta. And another thing is that depending on what these Legions do, it might actually be too slow, as we still have a lot of grade 3 VRs that are miles faster than a Legion. You need to be at your second turn for grade 3 if you went first, or you need to be going second, meaning you already face tanked a powerful grade 3 turn of your opponent. And depending on what type of clan you're playing, if you're playing Royals, they might go into their Exculpate the next turn, or go something else insane for their potential power plays that even going Legion might not be enough for you. But it depends on how Bushiroad would implement this. If they're gonna introduce it and then say, well, we're gonna give everybody from this point on where their main support is gonna be Legion, yes, then we're probably gonna see everybody playing Legion and it changes up. However, I think the better concept is to either give some clans once in a while here a Legion here and a Legion there unit, or just what I think is the most plausible thing, just give Musketeers as the only Legion option. This is their thing, and then it's a nice addition to standard as a whole. We have a new mechanic that can be played, but it's a single mechanic that's in the mix with other clans. I think that's a more healthy way to introduce things, because as we've seen with V, Bushiroad isn't going to introduce widespread mechanics anymore. They're introducing mechanics to single decks, to single clans, which gives more diversity to the meta. And that is, I think, a healthy thing to do, which would make, if we get Legion returned, I think a fair mechanic. It would probably not run rampant on its own, unless the skills are powerful, but the mechanic itself would be fair in contrast of what we already have. And that's basically everything for this video. Now I want to know what you guys think about Legion in standard. I'm not referring to would it return to standard, that's not what I want to know. I want to know if it would return, what are your thoughts about it with all the things that I presented in this video. Are you in favor of it, or are you not in favor of this mechanic entering in standard? And keep in mind, in what kind of context. Do you like it for only one clan, or do you want it for only one type of archetype in the deck, or do you want to have it on a widespread level where every clan can use this? Keep in mind, widespread mechanics aren't really seen in standard, so saying it's unfair that only one clan gets it, well, take a look at Tachikaze with their Equip Gauge, for example. Only they get that. Look at Genesis with the whole Astral Plane. Only they got that. Look at Gear Chronicles with the Pseudo Stride mechanic. Only they got that mechanic. This is not really an unfair to say only one clan gets the mechanic, as it will give more diversity to the meta. So I'm curious of what your thoughts are, so leave them all down in the comments down below and let the discussion going as always. But in the meantime, I want to thank my Patreon supporters for supporting this channel and making this video possible. You guys are amazing. If you want to support the channel and everything that's happening on the channel, then head over to patreon.com/Vanguard Insider and become a Patreon today. But with that said, I'm Mr. Time Leaf, and I see you guys in the next one.